Hi everybody, Father Bill Holzinger here, and this is your Friday Reflection. And I'm in the parish house. I'm in the back part of the parish house. I call it the sitting room, where I have seats that I sit in next to my cozy little fake fire. So there you go. What I want to do today is, well, in fact, let me back up. I was going to give a talk or a Friday Reflection on all the basics of the governance of a parish, and in the specifics here at Holy Trinity. But I started doing that, and I had like 3 or 4 or 5 takes, and I realized I abandoned it because it was too lengthy, too verbose, and very convoluted. So let's just do one at a time. So this is episode number 1 of the governance of a parish. So I first need to introduce this. I need to introduce to you this thing here called the Code of Canon Law. And this book is basically all the church laws that govern her. That means things about marriage, the sacraments, the Pope, the bishops, priests, deacons, and parishes, and other things like that. So the canons, as they call them, are important, and they're numbered. A canon, you might be familiar in this way. A canon, let me define it, is a measure or a rule. You might find this in things like Star Wars, if you're a Star Wars fan, and say another movie comes out or a book comes out, people are asking, is this canon? Or Star Trek movies, is this canon? Because those are also, in this case, made up stories, but then there has to be something governing it to say if these stories follow the canon, actually are part of the official rules of the story of whatever, Star Wars or Star Trek. But in this case, it's about a real thing, which is the church and whether the laws are the true laws we should be following. So they're put in a book and they're indexed by canons. So I want to introduce you not to all of the, again, different governing bodies of the parish. I'm going to start with first one. And that is the Pastoral Council. Now keep in mind, this Code of Canon Law comes from the Second Vatican Council. It got rewritten in 1983, and the previous one I think was 1917. So a lot of things have changed. Things needed to be updated, etc. So this is Canon, again, 536, and they have like sections. There's section 1 and section 2. There's not much said about a pastoral council, but this is where it speaks about it, and then I'll kind of get into some of the meat and the specifics of what our pastoral council does. Section 1 says, after the diocesan bishop has listened to the presbyteral council, which is basically the senate of priests that have been given and charged to work with the bishop to help him govern the diocese as the shepherd. After the diocesan bishop has listened to the presbyteral council, and if he judge it opportune, a pastoral council is to be established in each parish. The pastor presides over it, and through it, the Christian faithful, along with those who share in the pastoral care of the parish in virtue of their office, give their help in fostering pastoral activity. So some things to note here. The pastor presides over it. So he's the lead. That doesn't mean he's the chairperson, but basically he's the one who's receiving information from a pastoral council, but he's ultimately the decision maker. But it says this, but through it the Christian faithful also participate. And they share in the pastoral care. That means they then have expertise, they sit in the pews, they hear what's going on, they are involved in ministries, and ideally this pastoral council is made up of a variety of people that represent the whole parish. And then they're getting there to help in the pastoral activity, to foster it in the parish. Section 2, this pastoral council possesses a consultative vote only and is governed by norms determined by the diocesan bishop. We actually have, there's a book that was put out by the diocese with the Archbishop's approval about how to formulate a pastoral council, and they're guidelines. Nothing absolute, but guidelines other than this consultativeness, this quality about the pastoral council as a consultative group. So that's its origin, but so what do we do? What does the Pastoral Council do? And by the way, all the members of the Pastoral Council and Admin Council, their names are found on our website. And in fact, you might see their pictures coming up in the next photo directory. But I diverge. Back to what we do. The goal is to assist the pastor, to assist me in the pastoral mission of the parish. So we have a mission, first of all, and it's simple. It is able to be put in just basically 3 words. Know, grow, go. Know, grow, go. To come to know Jesus, to grow in that relationship, and then to go out and share that person, Jesus, to others. Share the good news about his gospel. So that's what we're called to do. The Pastoral Council then is, you could say, the dream team, the group that comes together with me monthly, and we do that on Saturday mornings, and we reflect on what's going on in the parish, the needs that our parish may have, the things around us in our culture, the events going on, and then they may think about, devising ways to approach those things, or give me advice as to what we might want to do as far as activities for the pastoral care of the people. Some examples are actually not too long ago. The first one when I got here was to manage and to work through the Synod on Synodality. More recently, the Pastoral Council decided, and this is something that I've shared with them, that we need to have a photo directory of our parishioners. Lots of people told me in my listening sessions when I arrived that they would like that. That was one of the things that came through. But the Pastoral Council is going to take it on them to kind of lead the impetus, the beginning push of doing this. So we had one of the members contact a group or a couple groups about who might be able to pull this off. And then once that was established, then the office staff, especially Erica, God bless her, have been really working hard to make sure that we get photos and other things. Katie, who is Katie Church from our Pastoral Council, was one that made the first calls and has been managing it at the bigger level, trying to also get photos so we can have activity pages and just a whole bunch of other stuff going on. And so she's been that person, and I want to thank Katie for doing that. We look through and ask the questions about what it is that the Spirit is calling us to do. In fact, we start our meetings with 15 minutes of adoration, and myself and the chairperson, in this case, Maria Minor, she and I, along with Deacon Brett and Father Dominic, our parochial vicar, we tried to come up with a question for the Pastoral Council to ponder on. They spend 15 minutes in adoration, praying, seeing what the Spirit will guide them to, and then we get to the actual location, which is at the conference room in our parish offices, and we respond and answer that question in a group, kind of a group setting to talk about that. The goal again is to then try to get a sense of what God wants us to do. And it could be through that question, or maybe other things, like members of the Pastoral Council might say, what's going on in the parish? What do you hear? What do you see that's going on well? What are things that we need to work on around the pastoral and ministerial activities of the church? So who could be on a Pastoral Council? Well, it depends on what parish you're in. Some people may actually have a situation where they have a nomination that they mention, please, nominate somebody and turn these names in, and then somehow that gets tabulated, and then some kind of voting process occurs in the parish. But that doesn't work for me. I find that just a popularity contest, and that's not helpful to me. I don't want to just be surrounded by the most popular people. What I want to be is surrounded by people that represent the whole of the parish. So that means I'm looking for someone who's young and old and middle-aged. I'm looking for singles. I'm looking for married people. I'm looking for people in the parish for a long time, maybe some newcomers. I might be looking for the different cultural groups. And that's something that's a situation for us. We have so many cultural and language groups. We need to have a lot of those folks represented as best as we can. Sometimes we have a council meeting and no decisions are made. And that's not a failure. For me, actually, it's always a win when we get together, because one of the goals of being church is to come together. The word church, ecclesia, means the gathering of people. And so whenever we gather, we win, if you think of it that way. It is a success because we are getting to know each other better. We are sharing our stories. We actually, after we've been praying at the Adoration Chapel, coming back, when we answer the different questions or whatever the question might be, we get to learn more about each other. So that's the Pastoral Council. Next time we'll get together, maybe we'll talk about the Admin Council. That's another one of the main 2 councils of a parish that are called for in the Code of Canon Law. Folks, this weekend I will be preaching. We're getting close to the end of the liturgical year. And so the scriptures are talking about the end times. Ooh, scary, right? Well, there will be an end time. right? Of course there will. We know that. Jesus said he will come in the end, whenever that would be. We just don't know when it will be. But my question is going to be, for us, and I'm pondering on this now, we'll write this up, is how do we respond to this in the everyday of things? How do we say goodbye? Well, how do we deal with loss? How do we do when either a relationship breaks or someone passes away? Because those things are indicative of how we may then be looking towards the second coming, if it comes in our lifetime, or our own personal individual death. We should be looking at these things with faith and hope, not with fear and worry or a hyper fixation on these things, because it's out of our control when Christ will come. And just to make it clear, the end times aren't something that's coming. We are already in the end times. It started at the birth of Christ. And maybe even better, it started at the conception of Christ, when the angel Gabriel came to Mary and she said yes to conceiving Christ. So I don't want to give up all the homily itself. I'm still formulating stuff. Who knows, I might change some of these things. I'd ask that you pray for me so that I'm able to articulate something that will be helpful to our community. Because that's one of my questions I always ask when we're preparing for homilies, at least I am. What do the people need to hear? Not just what I want to say, but what do the people need to hear? And then that gives me kind of an impetus to go in that direction. So I'll see you this weekend. May God bless you and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.